Hi, hello. Hello, Stephen. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Welcome in my podcast, Magic of Business, and we having some takeaways today from financial advisor. Can you maybe more introduce yourself?
Certainly. My name's Stephen Pitcher. I'm a financial planner, senior partner with St James's Place. I've been a financial planner, financial advisor for 42 years now. Before that, I was a financial analyst with BP. But I got involved in financial planning because I found the impact it can have on people's lives if they just get their finances straight, if they've just got a plan and a track to run on, everything can be so much smoother.
Yes, absolutely. Then, what will be your advice for like startups, for small businesses, when they start talking to you? What is your advices?
Well, the first thing I would suggest is that we create a plan. And what I mean by a plan is that it's very much like a sat nav. You know, when you get in a car and you turn the engine on, the sat nav will immediately look and say, well, where are we? Where am I? We've got to find out where you are as an individual, where the business is. And it might be a startup or it might be a business that's running. But what exactly is the situation? What are the assets? What are the liabilities? What are the debts? Things like that. Then we've really got to look at where you want to go. The sat nav, once it knows where it is, it says, right, where do you want to go?
Mm-hmm.
So there needs to be a plan. It needs to be a realistic plan. And by that, I mean not that it should take your entire life to achieve it, but it's highly unlikely you're going to be a millionaire by the weekend.
Yeah.
and very often I find people are so impatient. If they just had a plan and they worked towards it and they followed the steps, success is probably 200 times more likely than just wandering aimlessly.
Mm.
And that's the key. So I would say, find out where you are right now. What is your exact situation? Where is it you want to go in terms of what do you want the business to do? Do you want it to be a small business that we might call a lifestyle business that just gives you a basic income with minimal staff issues, etc.? Or do you want something bigger? And, you know, businesses grow at different stages, and therefore you need help at different stages. You'll meet challenges that you wouldn't have come across before. As you get bigger, you need HR help, you need branding, all sorts of things that the people you're working with,
Mm-hmm.
students and the coaches, etc., may never have come across that before. They may not know where to look. But sitting down with a financial advisor to create a formalized plan and having an accountant in place, etc., can make a massive difference to the business, and you can really see your progress. Otherwise, it can be daunting and utterly overwhelming.
Yes, I totally agree. I remember when we met few years ago,
Yeah.
few good years ago, and yeah, we have a big and deep conversation. And yeah, you opened my eyes for actually a few good aspects, and for even retirement.
Yep.
How about that subject?
Well, there's a couple of huge mistakes that business owners make. The first is invariably having what we call a passive accountant. And by that I mean somebody who just does the year-end books, never really follows up, never finds lost pensions, missing national insurance contribution years, things like that, because they never know their numbers are working correctly. As far as pension planning goes, one of the biggest allowances to reduce either your income tax or your corporation tax is contributing to a pension. The government wants you to do it. For limited company directors, your allowance is up to £60,000 a year that you can put away with full tax relief. That means you don't pay tax on that contribution. You're basically personalizing the profits of the business, moving them from a highly taxed area to a taxed advantaged area in your name.
Yeah.
And that money grows tax-free for your entire working life until you access it. And for many people, that can be 30 or 40 years. And it's not unrealistic to build hundreds of thousands of pounds. And the government wants you to do it, because that was the whole idea of workplace pensions for staff. There were millions of people with no pensions who are only going to ask for more state benefits. It's pretty obvious the government haven't got any money.
Yeah.
So they're saying, look, we'll give you the allowance, but you've got to make arrangements yourself. You've got to sort out your own situation. Otherwise, life in retirement is going to be tough. It is going to be really hard. And we're all living longer. We've been through the cost of living crisis. Yes, inflation's come down a bit, but it doesn't mean prices have come down. It just means the rate of growth has slowed of the appreciation of prices. So I would say, to position yourself for the future, the business as an entity, whether you're a self-employed business owner or whether you're a limited company director, the business needs to be contributing the benefits for you, because then you're personalising your profits, you're paying away as little tax as possible. It's got to be legitimate, but the allowances are there to use. And you want a successful business, do it properly, do it steadily. Don't be too impatient. Get proper training, proper mentoring, and it is so much more certain than if you just...
You're going to have secure future.
Yes, totally.
There we are. Okay. My next question is, what's the percentage of the income should go in the savings?
That's going
What's your advice?
Yeah, that's going to vary individually. Whenever you're giving specific financial advice, and there's a big difference between advice and guidance. Advice is one-on-one with a full fact find prepared, and I'm insured and regulated for that advice. When we're talking generally, that's guidance. These are the options you have. I can't tell everybody this is what you should do, because I don't know their individual situation. But the thing to do is, when we find out where someone is, we look at what their income actually is, what their expenses are, what their commitments are, but also if they've got any accrued benefits. Maybe they worked for companies before and they've got pension schemes that are already there. So we would look at those to see what the performance is, what the charges are, what the fund choices are, all those sort of things that can be a benefit. But to try and answer your question, we would normally say something like 10 to 15% would be a good figure if you can get to that. Now, in the beginning, when you're starting a business, you've got money going out so fast, you don't know what's happening. You're living on cash flow effectively. But as soon as we can get beyond that by planning properly, and you can start allocating maybe 10 or 15%, then you can build something over the long term. But a plan would take into account, when ultimately would you like to take life a little bit easier? When would you want to retire? Or if the plan is to sell the business, when do you want to sell the business? Is it 5 years? Is it 35 years? You see what I mean? Yeah. It affects the advice that then is given.
Yeah. It's good to look on like growth structure model, and where they want to be. My next question is, what's common mistakes you can see when people invest in the businesses?
Okay, there are two that I would suggest. There's investing in the business, and there's investing effectively for their own benefit, which is usually what financial planning is, how to get the money out of the business. The very first thing is procrastination. They take forever to make a decision to start.
Yeah.
I'll often work with clients, and the initial contributions or investment is minuscule. I don't mind that. In that it gets them started, it gets them seeing a result. And it's really, as a financial planner, it's a 10-15 year relationship. It's not about just buying something and then never seeing the advisor again. Consumer Duty has changed all that. We have to see clients every year, every 12 months. So procrastination, not just sitting down and getting on with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll do it next year. When I've got some more money, I'll do it. No. Sit down now. Get the plan in place. Decide what you're going to do. Even if it's delayed a little bit, you've had the conversation. That's the first thing. The second thing is people don't take enough risk. And what I mean by that is people love cash. And they put cash in the bank and they think, oh, I'm wealthy, etc. But the reality is, if inflation is running at 3-4%, which in terms of the inflation we've had in the past is small, but you're only earning 0.5 or 1 or 1.5% on your interest for the money on deposit, you are guaranteed to be losing the spending power of that money.
Mm.
And over a 10-year period, that could be a quarter of the value. That money will not buy you what you think it would. So it's very often being too cautious. And by that I mean, if somebody's investing into a retirement account and they've got it all in cash in the building society, it's just never going to grow in real terms. And there's 150 years of real life evidence that investing in a broadly diversified spread of equities, commercial property and fixed interest investments outperforms typically over any 5-year period over that 150 years.
Mm.
So if somebody's obviously a year from retirement, they're going to be far more cautious than someone's in their 20s or 30s who are not going to touch the money for 20 years.
Yeah.
I'll give you a real life example.
Mm.
My grandson has got a junior ISA. That's a junior individual savings account. £150 a month goes into it. He's 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He can't touch it till he's 18.
Mm-hmm.
It's intended to pay for university fees if he wants to go to university, or deposit for a house or things like that.
Yeah.
But I would hope that when he gets to that age, he won't touch all of it,
Mm-hmm.
but rather it'll be the start of a lifetime investment portfolio. Now, it's already over £7,000. It's invested aggressively in a globally diversified portfolio of international stocks, equities, because it doesn't matter if it goes up or down. That's where the growth is. It certainly isn't in the building society. So yes, you need sufficient emergency funds available, and especially when you're running a business, you have to be aware of the cash flow needs of the business.
Mm-hmm.
But once you've taken your share out, that's when you need advice as to what you should be doing to make it grow long term. Because when you come to sort of depart from the business, whether that's you retire or whether you sell the business, if you've got another £1 million tucked away in a retirement account, that's a nice warm feeling.
Absolutely. But how to get that £1 million? Can you give us more example? Let's say what people could do to obviously get that money, not in the, let's say around, people when they 40s, 50s as well.
Right.
Obviously it's not as long.
Yeah.
When you're 7 or 4, but I've got lots of, let's say, students and startups when they obviously in them 30s, some of them 40s.
Yep.
Then what they can do to be like secure and have that
The
good security for the elderly.
The key, like I said, is to start to do something.
Yeah, even start small. Yeah.
Yeah, even start small. The minimum we normally work with is about £500 a month. But I can go lower than that. I can go down to probably 250. But I don't mind that to get someone started.
Mm-hmm.
But my encouragement is always to go to about 500 at least. The most you can do is £5,000 a month.
Okay.
With no tax.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it comes off of the top before the bottom line.
It comes out from the business. Yeah.
Comes out from the business account. straight into your named retirement account.
Mhm. And
Now-
this is separately because obviously some people don't know. We pay in ourselves wages,
Yes.
yeah, and we pay in this apart from dividends, yeah.
Yep.
We've got salary, we've got dividends, and also we've got paying for our pensions, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's separate. We can get this money out of the business without the tax.
Without the tax, and that the government wants you to do it. The allowance is there. Now, the next thing is every year to try and nudge it up, make it a little bit more. I always remember this chap I met. It was about 40 years ago, but he said, I started with an insurance company, and he said I was doing £20 a month. I'm still doing £20 a month. Well, £20 a month 40 years ago was a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of money now. So every year try and increase it by at least inflation, because then it maintains its real value.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another point that not a lot of people know. If you're contributing to a retirement account or any investment over any sensible time period, a level amount, not indexing, which is what I'm suggesting, the level amount, the first 5 years accounts for half the fund. So even if you're investing over 40 years, if it's the same amount every month for 40 years, the first 5 years has been there the longest, and it compounds and it accounts for half the fund. So get started as early as possible with compounding, which is a bit like, the analogy I use is, imagine you're stood on the top of Mont Blanc, the mountain in France, and you cobble together a snowball, nice and tightly packed snow, and you start to roll it down the hill. Because it's got a long way to roll, the snowball gets bigger and bigger until it's a boulder, until it's almost an avalanche. It's huge. That's what you want. If you leave it and keep putting it off, and the oldest person I've ever advised to take out a pension was 67. And he started a pension, and his argument was, nobody ever explained to me how to do it. I drew him a picture. It was a pretty simple picture. I like that.
Yeah.
And off we went.
Yeah.
Now, you can do it all the way through to 75. And he will have quite a lot of money that he won't have paid tax on, that he's now growing tax-free until he accesses it. But start as soon as possible.
Okay, that's lovely advice. Then can you tell us more about the numbers? Because obviously it's hard to imagine. Let's say we're paying that £500 monthly for, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 years. Then what we can expect in another 20, 30 years? What sort of amount of the money? Can you say roughly this?
That's an
Because
incredible...
obviously people
Yeah.
never speak, some of them with financial advisor, and what to expect. They think probably I'm putting £500 every month and it's gonna be the same amount on the end of the road, yeah?
Okay.
But it's not. It's actually, like you're saying, it's growing.
Right.
Then what sort of amount?
Well,
and how is that look when we can get this money out?
Okay.
Maybe more detail.
All right. There are two things there. I can't tell you the amount, because that depends on the individual's age, when they want to access it, the fund selection, i.e. the amount of risk they're comfortable taking, because that's likely to grow faster. But what I can say is that if you're increasing it and you're working with a financial advisor, every year you will have the opportunity to sit down and say, am I on track? And everything can be inflation linked. And by that I mean, what today is 50,000 a year, in the future 50,000 a year will be much more, but we can calculate it to say what you're going to get is equivalent to 50,000 today. So we can tailor it almost exactly. One of the other things is that we've all got these apps on our phone. So if you wanted, you can look at it every day Now, I wouldn't do that because it'll drive you mad. But I have had people that do that.
Okay.
But what it means is you can be confident that you can see exactly what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes a massive difference. In the past, people only used to get a statement once a year. Invariably, they wouldn't open the statement because they didn't really understand it. And the number of people I meet who've accrued 2, 3, 4 pensions that are all over the place, that are kept in a bottom drawer, they haven't opened the envelopes, they know who it's from because it's on the envelope itself branded. But they just say, oh yeah, they're my pensions. And I say, okay, well, what are they worth? And what are they going to give you? Oh, I don't know. Well, we really need to know if you're going to target a particular figure in the future. But also there's the issue of state pension. State pension now is going to be £12,500 a year. It's not to be sniffed at. It's a decent sum. And if you're a couple, that's £25,000 a year. Now, there's a lot of research that's been done that would show that that is not enough to give you even a minimum lifestyle. It's meant as a foundation, not as your sole living allowance. But if you don't have enough years of national insurance contributions, you won't get the full state pension. And we need to know now, because it's a rolling 6-year thing, that you can fix shortfalls. So if you don't look at it and leave it, we can't go back beyond a certain period to pay for those years. But again, state pension, build all that in, build other schemes you've got, and before you know it, people can have a plan that works.
Then you're talking about like Nest, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then let's say pension, what we're taking out from with your investment.
Yeah.
It is private pension, and clients still got pension from work, from national insurance.
Yep.
Number. Yeah.
Yeah. People, we would look at every pension they've got, and there are strict rules under the FCA regulators' guidelines as to what can be moved and if that's appropriate. And if it isn't, then it stays where it is. But we would build in the projections from that scheme. We would monitor that scheme to make sure it's hitting what it says it's going to do and build it into the plan. When people come to take the benefits, there's a thing called pension freedom that George Osborne gave us back in 2015. And what it means is this. You've almost got a bag of money that is your pensions. In the past, one of the options was that you sold that bag of money when you came to retire for a guaranteed income for life. The problem was we were all living longer and interest rates were very low at the time, meaning the return on the money that you were given was pitiful. Lots of people were saying, well, why should I bother funding a pension? The government doesn't want that. They want you to take your own actions. So pension freedom means you hold that bag of money, if it's a retirement account, which is basically a personal pension, until the day you die. Now, you then have flexibility to take out what you like when you want to. Now, a quarter of the fund is tax-free, and you don't have to take it all in one go. The rest is taxed at your rate when you take it. So you might be a higher rate taxpayer now, but when you come to retire after the age of currently 55, but it's going to go to 57, after the age of 57, if you take that money, you're probably a basic rate taxpayer. So you would only pay the equivalent of 20% in today's money. But that fund, if it's big enough, and assuming you're not going on a world cruise every quarter and want to buy a Lamborghini, that fund could continue to grow even though you're taking income out. So it means every year you could be getting an index-linked withdrawal.
Because still money's there.
Yeah, it's there. Rachel Reeves changed it in the last budget to say pensions are now going to form part of your estate for inheritance tax before they were outside of the estate, which people need to be aware of. If you've got a lot of property, if you've got a business that's worth a lot, that doesn't qualify for what we call business relief, there can be all sorts of problems there. But that's why you'd sit down with professionals right at the beginning and say, look, this is what I've got. This is what I'm planning. Tell me the pitfalls. What do I need to do now?
What's the best steps?
Yeah.
My next question is, what the self-employed people need to do when they plan in their retirement?
Okay. Self-employeds are in a very different situation to employeds. And what I mean by that is their income tends to fluctuate more. If you're an employee or you're a company director and you're taking a set salary out, then you've got sort of consistency of earnings. Modern retirement accounts have super flexibility. And what I mean by that is contributions can go up, they can go down, they can stop, they can restart with no penalty.
Mm-hmm.
The days of insurance companies demanding you make the exact contribution on the day for 25 years are gone. They just want you as a client, and they want you to pay in as much as you can when you can.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mean by that change it every week, because that will drive us insane. But if somebody has certain business pressures, or there's a big investment coming up, and they say, look, I really need to take a payment holiday, that's fine. It might be they're young and they're having children and there's a lot of expense. Whatever's already accrued and is already in the fund continues to grow at whatever return is being earned. But it's that flexibility, and you can pay lump sums in. If you have a great year and the accountant turns around and says, there's going to be a lot of tax this year, then you need to be looking at, can we afford to take a chunk of money and pay it into the pension? Because you're protecting yourself in the future. Who knows what's going to happen and when you might need to take payment holidays, etc. But if you've already built a vast fund that's growing on its own, it's like that snowball that's become a boulder. That's what we're trying to achieve. And I've got lots of clients that I started at the smallest amounts. And they were tiny clients, and you work with them. And then a few years later, you're going to see them, you're preparing the pack, and you look and, wow, where did that come from? And it's a really decent chunk of money. But people procrastinate because they think they don't have enough to start. That's the worst thing you can do. Do something. At least create a plan and pull together all your bills. And I know there are lots of people you meet as advisors, we meet, that you turn up and in the middle of the table is a whole pile of unopened envelopes. And you know what they are. And it's like, well, let's look at them. Let's find out where we are and let's make a plan. And I've been in lots of situations where I've worked with people who thought it was absolutely hopeless. And there are lots of ways around.
Amazing, yeah.
All right.
What the people should think about the risk tolerance?
Okay. Risk tolerance is really important. And it's important because it's the amount of volatility that you feel comfortable accepting. Now, by that I mean that if you're the sort of person who really worries about financial matters, you've got quite a negative view of the world at the moment, and you're really worried and concerned, and your situation is that the amount of money you've got is limited, your capacity for loss, should this investment not go quite as planned, that it will affect you massively, your risk tolerance is low. You can't really accept big swings. If, on the other hand, you've got hundreds of thousands of pounds sitting in a bank in cash, and you're 20 to 30 years away from retirement, your willingness to absorb fluctuations is greater. It's critically important as a financial advisor that we don't overlay our risk profile with the client. You listen and you understand. It's very much like driving. If you buy a car and you say, I want it to be totally safe, okay, right, then you need to have the hazard warning lights on all the time. Don't take the handbrake off and drive in the hard shoulder. You're not going to get very far, but it's highly unlikely you're going to get hit. At the same time, somebody who goes too extreme, who's a speculator, it's a bit like driving in freezing fog at 100 miles an hour. You might get there quicker, but you're almost certainly going to hit something. So I would say we have to judge, and we now have new software available to assess that. Where does somebody comfortably sit? So they're always happy with the risk that they are taking. It's not too extreme, but also it's not too cautious. Because if someone says, I want growth at any cost, and we've explained what that means and what the volatility is going to mean, and then they're in the most cautious fund going, they would obviously have a case against the advisor to say, well, I told you I wanted to invest in those markets, and you've stuck me here. As a result, I've had 10 years of underperformance. That's not a good conversation. That's called tense. So I would say risk tolerance is vital to understand what is your own personal risk tolerance and what does that look like in terms of your portfolio or your funds that you're invested in. And we review it every year. We sit down, we have that discussion. Has anything changed? Supposing a partner's died or there's been a business calamity, cash flow is incredibly tight, the business is on a knife edge, then you may need to change how it's invested.
My next question is, what will be your advice how to teach kids to look up the money,
Okay, and that's a good question, and we actually offer a service where we go into schools and we do I think a 2-hour session to children, typically I think 15, 16-year-olds, etc., to explain certain money principles. And it's quite amazing, all the stuff they claim they're never going to use in their life, all of a sudden the equations come up and I know what that means, and they then start to understand. There's a book called Save Your Acorns by a chap called Robert Gardner, and it's all about squirrels saving nuts for Christmas. And what it means is deferring consumption. If a child spends their entire pocket money every week on sweets and toys, that's not a good lesson. Rather, teach them to take a portion of it and invest it or put it to one side. Now, initially in my day, it was with National Savings. You literally had a green metal box with a little slot where you'd put the coins and a little roll thing where you could put the paper money. And you couldn't open it. You had to go to the post office to get it opened. But if you can then, as they grow older, start something like a junior ISA, a child at the moment is allowed to have £9,000 a year going in. It starts typically at around £150 a month, but I can do less than that. But the beauty is you can have multiple people contributing to that scheme for the child. So you could have grandparents putting in £10 or £20 a month. So long as it comes to the figure that we need, then they've got an investment account. And they can't touch it till they're 18. But they then are involved in the principle of investing because they can monitor it. As they get older, they then start to be interested in, well, why is 49% of my money invested in North America? Well, then we can have a different discussion. You see what I mean? So it's really about involving them. You wouldn't sit down and, well, you might do, but normally you wouldn't sit down and discuss council tax.
No, of course.
Yeah, but if it's their money, it doesn't have to be very much, and you can put lump sums in. So if there was a bit of money in the building society, you might put £1,000 in to start it, and then do a monthly amount with multiple people contributing. That'll grow quite quickly. I mean, there's every chance. My grandson, for sure, £7,000 in there already. You know, by the time he can be in his mid-30s, if he does what I'm going to teach him, it could be hundreds of thousands of pounds. That gives him a lot of freedom. It gives him freedom to invest in his own business. It gives him maybe freedom to retire a lot earlier. It takes away all the money pressures that you and your viewers will no doubt have lived through in your lifetimes. Just by starting now, just by getting them involved and showing them and really teaching them, this is what money is, and this is what it does, and this is why you need to put this bit to one side. Because when things go wrong, if there's no reserve,
you'll never know.
It's credit cards. And then when they finally understand how long it takes to clear a credit card, if you just pay the minimum amount, it's something like 31 years. That's a lot of interest you're paying to the bank. So,
why the smart people still making terrible financial decisions?
A lot of really intelligent people do make really dumb financial decisions. But you've got to remember that we have a I was going to say billion, but it's probably £1 trillion industry of marketing that tries to convince all of us that we need that new product. We need that new car, even though the old one is only 2 years old. We need consumption now, because that's what drives the economy and makes the supplier rich. When you involve emotion in it, that's when it all goes wrong. So the earlier, your previous question about children and how do you teach them, the earlier you can teach them to almost rationalize their investing, a set amount goes in, forget about it, let it build up, let the fund managers do their job. They're investing in businesses all over the world. They know what they're doing. And you then have a certain amount that's left. You can then choose what you want to spend it. But if you spend all of your money, and I've met lots of traders, and then there's one particular chap I'm thinking of, and this goes back to the crash of '87. This guy was a trader. He made a lot of money, but he was spending money like it was water. He was going to...
I know a few people like this.
Yeah. He was going to New York for the weekend, just spending crazily. Nothing was put aside. People assume where they are right now is going to continue forever. It will not. Things will change. And if you haven't got a reserve, if you haven't set up a structure that works without you worrying, there's a book called The Automatic Millionaire by David Bark. It's a brilliant book. And what it says is set up a direct debit into your investments and forget about it. And it's like the whole book. Was that it? Yes. So what this chap did, going to New York for weekends and having all these experiences, great. But then he got made redundant. He never got back into the city. He had to retrain as a plumber. There's nothing wrong with plumbers. They earn a good living, but they don't earn what a trader makes. And he'd blown all that money when he could have been sensible, put it aside, and had a cushion and a higher standard of living that he now has. But I always remember that guy, because he was like, when he told me the story, it was like, well, didn't you save anything?
Yeah.
No.
Some people don't think, and they definitely need your advice.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah. Why people avoiding looking on their bank accounts, even they doing actually okay?
But a lot of people have a tendency to, I call it, go unconscious on their money. They've got a rough idea of what's there, but with modern systems, with modern apps, you can know every day what your bank situation is. You can know what direct debits are going out, what's about to come out, subscriptions you have, you can really have total oversight of where you are. Um, it, it, it's almost being negligent by not looking at it and being aware of it. And I know sometimes it doesn't look great, and you think, oh, this is terrible, and you get depressed and all that. But you're better off knowing than not knowing.
Mm.
It's a bit like medical diagnosis. It, if I've recently been through a medical condition, and I was really lucky. It was prostate cancer, and had I not had private medical tests, blood tests, I would never have known. And by the time, in 3 years' time, when I was due to have my next blood test, NHS blood test, it would have spread all over. So I was really lucky, but I found it. If people have got symptoms and do nothing about it, and then are shocked and horrified when they find out it's far worse than they thought it was, whose fault is that? You know, that's why you work with a financial planner, to say, look, this is a situation. I know it's a mess. What do I do?
Yeah.
And a financial advisor can sit down and say, okay, where do you want to go? This is what you need to do this year. Just concentrate on this. If we just do this, when we meet up there, we'll work on the next bit.
Mm.
But it's so much easier to get there with a plan rather than just wander blindly, and to not open the envelopes and know where you are. You're setting yourself up for a big fall.
What people should do then to make the dream reality?
Well, I would say, and this particular time of the year is perfect, decide what your dream really is, and in 2026 go after it. And I really mean that. Not necessarily leave your job and hope everything's going to work out, but get training, start the process, form the limited company, get advice, sit down with advisors. You may still be doing your current job because that's what's paying the rent or the mortgage and feeding the family and all that. That's fine. But don't have it on the back burner forever.
Mm.
And 2026 is the year to do it. So grab the bull by the horns as such, commit to the training you're going to do, get the mentor, find out what's needed, and have a real plan. And my thing is, think on paper. By that I mean, especially over Christmas time, between Christmas and the New Year, life slows down a bit. And whether you do it early morning before the kids are up maybe, or late at night, sit down with a pad and say, what do I really want? What's got to have happened between now and next Christmas for me to think 2026 was a success? But think big, but also be realistic. Okay? And by that I mean, it's highly unlikely, starting from nothing, you're going to have 100 clinics.
Absolutely.
By next December, right? But think it through, and you've started that process. The more people do in that way, and there's a line that I love, which is, people without written goals are destined to work for those that have. So until you write it down, and I would say write it down more so than type it into a computer, because the actual act of writing
you remember
helps
better,
it go. Yeah. You remember better, it goes into your brain more, and read it regularly. And try and think every day, right, what can I do today to move me along the line to achieve that goal? So just stick it in a drawer and look at it next Christmas. It may come true, but the point is, if you carry it around with you, work with it and move forward, make those connections, do the training with your academy, that works.
Yeah. I'm speaking to lots of startups and small business owners, and they just don't have that push. They cannot overcome the fear to actually stand on their feet you know, and it's hard to just get that one step forward for lots of clients. But I think, like, obviously I did, let's say, as well, with business mentoring, with financial advisors, with accountants, with this and that. Even that business is not on the feet yet, but it can be really easy, and with little bit of support, little bit of advice, it is opening the
Yeah.
eyes clearly.
I think of the image of a really hot day in a beautiful location, and there's a shimmering swimming pool. Now, there are some people who are going to run along and leap in and bomb into the water. Okay, they're just that type of person. But there are other people who won't do that, and that's perfectly normal. They'll go down the steps, a little bit at a time, little bit at a time. Just dip your toe, then up to your ankle, then your shin, and before you know it, you're up to your waist. Oh, this is really nice. And then you're up to your shoulders and you're swimming. So don't feel bad about doing it in stages, but that's what I'm saying. Write it down. If we know where you are now and we know what the ultimate goal is, it's very easy for accountants, financial advisors, etc., to show you what the steps are. And one of the things is, okay, if you're going to form a limited company, what name do you want? Is that name available? Just the process of going onto Companies House website and looking for a name. And if, L'Oreal's already gone, you'll have to have something else. But if you do that, you will feel better and you'll feel you're making progress. But do it in little steps. Fear comes from assuming you've got to jump from nothing to being a multinational. You haven't. You don't know the skills. You don't know enough yet.
Yeah. Lots of my clients as well, obviously, they're learning the skill, but after it's just the business model is hard. How to build a website, which one is good. They, branding, marketing, how to get the clients, all these little aspects, and obviously we're spending money for all these graphic designers, for all the business model, and they need a bit of the advice. Then it is really skyrocket the business when you got good coaches around yourself and somebody who knows what they talk about.
And always remember, as a business owner, you choose your clients, because there are certain people you may love to deal with, and there are others that you really don't work well with. So by getting help and advice on the website, the branding, etc., you can appeal to your dream client bank, and then it becomes almost social. And that's a lot of fun. And your life could change totally when you're in charge.
You can actually love what you do.
Yeah.
Not going to work because you have to.
Yeah. And you've got flexibility, and you've got money in the bank, and you know what's coming in, and that help and advice is always available. I don't care how big you get. I've got clients with 50 million pound turnover, and many of them have the same problems. Okay, they're bigger problems, but they have the same sort of problems. But the bigger the business becomes, the more they plan, and they know where they're going. And the discussions we have are great. It's really enjoyable. So I totally understand the frustration, the worries, the nervousness. I would always say take baby steps. It's a bit like a child. You've got 2 children. So let me ask you this question. When you're first born, he was stood the other side of the room. It was the first time he was ever going to walk. And you're there and you're saying, come to mummy, right? And he took the step. You knew he was going to take the step. And with that, he fell over on his bottom. What did you do? Did you pick him up, put him back in the playpen and say, that's it, son, you'll never walk?
No, obviously that's fine.
You keep trying, you keep going. And that's really what somebody who's starting out, there are going to be mistakes. But the more you work with other people and get help, the less the severity of those mistakes.
Stephen, then what will be like if you give one financial tip for life, what that will be?
It would be to take action. And by that I mean don't procrastinate. We all procrastinate. But start that project. Move forward. If you're worried about tax, get advice. Make the phone call, book the appointment. Just the number of people I've seen who have reached retirement with their music still in them, as they say, where they could have done great things, but they never took that one step.
That one phone call.
That one phone call, that one step,
conversation.
You know, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. You have no idea what could happen. So I would say it's take action. The plan is great, and I would always work with clients on plans. But if you never do anything with it, it was a wasted exercise. You've got to take action.
Yeah, I think it's as well, like people obviously so used to it, to 9 to 5 as well, when they changing the pathway, when they opening them all businesses eventually as well, is like big shock. They don't know where they are, because before was so secure, just a salary, go home, and that's it, life is finished. When you're entrepreneur, when you're CEO of your own business, it's completely different story, and you can secure your life better.
Well, what people find is that at least the first 5 years is going to be a hell of a lot harder than working for someone else. It just is, because you're trying to build something and you're learning the skills and adapting, etc. When you worked for somebody else, you did what you were told, and for many people, they do as little as possible they can get away with. All of a sudden now, you're not doing that, you're doing the complete reverse. So it's going to be hard, it's going to be stressful, but the rewards at the other end are phenomenal. And when I drive into certain clients' houses and I look at the size of the house, I look at just the assets they've accrued, and I look at their lifestyle, and I look at the holidays, and I'm just like, wow. Yeah. But they took action, and
they get that knowledge, they get that advice, they get that mentoring, and
because the wealthy are different. They get better advice. If you're asking the person down the pub, who knows what's going to happen? And never take advice from someone who hasn't done it or achieved it.
Yeah. Look on a bigger picture and look on somebody who actually have that in plan. And thank you, Stephen, for coming to my podcast, and thank you for all the advices and takeaways for our listeners. And wish you all the best, and we'll see you soon.